Are we live? Are we live?
And we are live. Welcome back to Aussies taking over the NBA on Tuesday night, the eve of NBA 2020.
The big NBA returns with some very, very pissed off Chinese people. So
Yeah,
we'll, we'll we'll see how that unfolds in the next little while. But that is not great for the bank balance of the NBA. China being one of the biggest markets, and yeah, you just don't want to piss the Chinese off. They get very angry.
yes, they do. We haven't really touched on any of the China stuff. I try to stay out of kind of
I don't.
socially type
Yeah, I don't.
issues
It's not social. Just don't bite the hand that feeds you.
for
You know,
sure.
it's just Daryl Morey doing Daryl Morey things, and
Do you,
then
do you reckon it was calculated?
I don't know, man,
He's
because
been
it
working
hurts.
with them for years, though. That's
It's
what I do know. He's been working with China pretty much since the Yao Ming days for about 10 years. So
it's just yeah, it's
seems a little bit calculated to me.
maybe he didn't get paid off or something, and now he's pissed. I don't know. It's just
Well, it has salary cap implications. If they pulling money out, then the cap goes down. So I think he's got a little bit of an incentive there.
does he? They're so far in the luxury tax zone as it is that
Well, it hurts other teams.
it does, but it hurts them just as much. Anyway, we don't even know. Let's not
Yeah,
speculate.
yeah.
I
two
don't really
two guys
care.
who haven't really gone in depth on it. All I've done is listen to a couple of Bill Simmons podcasts where they briefly
Uh,
talked about it for a bit,
it's
and
yeah, I
I
know,
kind
but
of went, oh, boring.
it's yeah, and then the LeBron hate, and then it's quite funny.
Mm.
It's now it's the outrage generation. Everything's outrageous.
It's like fake scandal type stuff. Like,
Really a scandal. It's just he
no, but
wrote.
like everyone wants to be like, yeah, scandal, scandal. You know what I mean? Like, it's I often just steer clear of that sort of stuff. I'm just like, man, if people are piling on, I'm usually going like 100 miles an hour the other way to get away from all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit annoying.
But we do have Utah Jazz. Those just listening on audio won't see me pointing to my sweet Utah Jazz hat. Bought losing a bet after I didn't win the over. No, I
Yep.
didn't really. I lied about that, but I still bought a sweet hat. Yeah, Utah Jazz. What do we got this season? It's the last one of the season previews. Uh,
It's
yeah,
it's our big great white hope along with Philly. I'd love to see a Philly Jazz final. Wow, that would be pretty amazing.
that would be
See,
four Aussies in the NBA Finals.
it'd be crazy, wouldn't it? Look, the Jazz have improved this season. Would you say?
Yes. Well, from my expectations from last season, they have declined.
Well, I mean, in terms of the roster, you have to look at the roster. They've improved the roster in the off season.
So I'm just pulling it up here. I had it up before.
I mean, Mike Conley for Ricky Rubio is a pretty
I think
no.
that's a good trade. And I remember us sort of halfway through the season being like, make the trade, man. Just it's right there. Make that trade right now, please. And then they didn't end up doing it. Gets all the way to the end of the season, they didn't make the trade in the off season, and you're just like, why did you not do that halfway through the season? I don't understand. But good trade, you reckon?
Good trade. I think Ricky Rubio had served his time in the sun, and the Mormons had to kick him out. I think that's he didn't really suit the offense of this team. He's a kind of pass first point guard that takes too many shots.
Yeah, yeah,
If you get what I'm saying.
yeah.
And I just don't think that he had the foresight for this team. There was just too many people trying to do too many things, and he just added a point. You need really that scoring point guard who can play a bit of ISO, but then find dudes in the open because you've got so many facilitators on this team as well. You didn't need another facilitative heavy player. You needed a scorer. And so it was a good trade, I think. A little bit of depth has been lost in this Utah Jazz outfit, I think. Jay Crowder's gone. Um, Alex Burks is gone.
Yeah. Grayson
Some guys
Allen's
that
gone as well. Favors, I
Grayson,
think, is gone as well.
yeah, Derek Favors is gone. So it's quite a deep void to fill in terms of some bench backup. Obviously, they signed Bojan Bogdanovic and Emmanuel Moide, as a deep backup point guard option. But yeah, if we look at this roster, obviously Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. Dante Exum, we're expecting massive things from him this year if he can get his body right. Jingling Joe.
Are we expecting massive things? Or
I
are we
am.
really just hoping he stays fit and he has at least a season where it doesn't just get derailed by injuries? Because I'm not hoping for big. I'm not sitting here going, man, he has to have a great season. I'm expecting something big. I'm kind of going, man, I hope he has 65 games this season where he doesn't get injured and plays enough to make me go, right, build on it for next season. Because I'm kind of looking at him now going, he's got to shake off the injury curse. You know what I mean? Like last year,
Yeah,
we were
he
like,
does.
okay, I'm expecting something because he's fit, he's coming to the new season, and then he got a couple of freak injuries where it kind of kept him out. And I don't know, I'm not ready to go he's injury prone yet because I do think he's had a couple of kind of freaky injuries. The shoulder was a little bit freaky. I think he had that ankle where he came down on his ankle. But this season, I think he needs to at least just play games, and I'm not really expecting a lot from him.
I'm expecting a big outing. I think that he really needs to stop being maybe such that slasher and involve his game a little bit to be that outside shot, increase his 3-point percentage, get into less situations where he's going hard at the rim and more likely to injure himself.
Mm.
I think that's a big play for him this year. He's spending more time at that probably two spot or even a small forward, and just being that scoring influence, maybe working on his mid game because it seems like he does get injured when he slashes to the basket, and maybe take a bit of time to step back and just work on your shot game because that's where the NBA is. I mean, we all love a good slasher, but as teams get bigger and longer, it's harder to get to the rim. So you really have to develop that mid-range and outside game, especially on this team where you've already got guys like Donovan Mitchell that just shoot in traffic no matter where, how, or why.
Mm.
And so you really don't need that second guy in getting in that kind of in that zone. Maybe do a bit more facilitation as well if he's playing back up to Mike Conley. But I do expect a bigger season from him. He's shown like flashes of brilliance, especially in his defensive game. So it's in a Western Conference that's kind of improved somewhat, even on last year. I would hope that he gets enough game time to really work on his game.
I feel like they've gotten better anyway, and kind of more reinforcements at the sort of guard and forward position that they didn't really have last season. If you look at like what Bojan Bogdanovic brings, it's kind of Ingles 2.0, or another Ingles basically. So they're going to, again, I'm going to go into, they're going to be able to just create these lineups that are just going to be fantastic. And they're going to have like mirroring here. They're going to be able to do this here and there. I think they're going to probably stagger Bogdanovic and Ingles. I don't think you're going to be able to keep them on the court at the same time. But
No,
the big draw is that if they stagger Conley and Donovan Mitchell, I mean, the last 2 years, have they been a catalog to go, you know what Donovan Mitchell needs? To play at the 2 spot. You know what I mean? It's been basically just get everyone out of the way, give Donovan Mitchell the ball, and just create your roster around him, driving like a maniac Russell Westbrook style and just tossing the ball everywhere. Yet last year kind of didn't have the toss the ball out everywhere. He kind of had the I'm going to try and finish over guys 15 times a game and get snuffed probably 8 or 10 of them every game and frustrate the hell out of you and me trying to watch this Jazz team over the course of the season. Hey, I got a stat that'll blow your mind here.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily a stat, but this will blow your mind. Dante Exum, $9 million over the next 2 seasons, $9 million a season, is the 5th highest paid player on this team, on this roster.
What?
Yeah, did that blow your mind?
Uh, Who's not getting paid as much?
So we got Mike Conley on the max. Obviously, he signed that massive deal back when the cap spiked. So he was the highest paid player in the league, I think, for a short period of time, basically by way of the cap spike increasing him signing one of the first max deals. $32.5 million. Rudy Gobert, $25 million. Bojan Bogdanovic, $17 million. Joe Ingles is 4th with 11 or 12 million basically, and then Dante is 9.6 per season for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, you forget that Donovan's still on a rookie deal.
Yeah, that's one of the big factors. And Royce O'Neal, they signed with cap space. So Royce O'Neal, I think he can. No, this is his third year of this contract. So I think they drafted him from memory. Should have done my research on that. And then if you look at like Ed Davis, Donovan Mitchell on that rookie contract. So Ed Davis is on $4 million. Tony Bradley, $1.9 million. Georges Niang, $1.6. Jeff Green, $1.6. So there's there's room in this team. There's no room in this team really for flexibility. They've kind of got all their guys tied up into, I don't know, Mike Conley, Gobert, Bogdanovic, Ingles, Exum. Is that a five where you're like, yep, definitely value for money there, worth their money? I'm not 100% sure on that.
I don't. Well, I mean, I think Mike Conley's probably past 32 million. Yeah, Bojan Bogdanovic is probably not worth 17 million. If you got him at like a 3-year 30, he'd be good. But I suppose he moved from Indiana to get paid. Dante
Did
Exum,
he sign a free agent? Was he a free agent when he signed? Yeah, I think he was.
yes, yeah, he was free agent. Dante Exum was a massive gamble, obviously, with that 3 years, 9 million a season. But I think they obviously see something in him that, like we do, in terms of a player, to keep going with him. Hope he gets to that point in his career, and then it kind of just drops off, doesn't it? It's got really. I mean, Joe Ingles is worth every dollar he brings.
Yeah.
It kind of just drops.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
It drops off into this, space of role players. Like
and some really like who Tony Bradley, Nigel William-Goss, William Howard, Santon Kidd. They're not like, oh, okay, he's been around the league and he's just getting paid low salary. You know what I mean? This drops down to like some unknowns basically.
Yeah,
and some of those guys are like deadlines where they might be just binned anyway. They're like kind of G League contracts. So I'm not as in as I am on this on last year's roster. This year I'm not as in as I was on last year's roster.
It seems like last year's roster, they were deep. Although Ricky Rubio, Jay Crowder, Alex Burks, they were deep. Like they could go to the 7th and 8th man, but it seems like it's just 6 featuring Georges Niang and maybe a bit of Jeff Green as a bit of a veteran presence. Jarrell Brantley, never heard of him. Tony Bradley is a backup center.
So
Who knows?
that was big last season because if you look at when Rudy Gobert was unplayable, like there was spots in last season's finals where you're like, Rudy Gobert's unplayable, man. Like sometimes he was playable, sometimes you were just like, man, it's fucking, he can't be out here on the court. And that's where Favors, they were like, okay, yeah, Favors, put him in. Like against the Rockets, Favors had some favorable games where you're like, yeah, Favors is favoring here, nice. This season they don't have that, man. They don't have, once you get rid of Rudy Gobert, or if he becomes unplayable, you're like, oh, Tony Bradley, 21-year-old Tony Bradley. Beyond that, they don't have another center on the roster. So I'm wondering what's going to happen there, man.
I'm wondering if they're just waiting to the trade deadline in, the January trade deadline to see. I mean, if you look at Tony Brady's career stats, it's kind of like 5.4 minutes per game, points per game is 2, blocks per game 0.2. So, and that's pretty.
They capped out too, so I don't know, man. It's that kind of that Mike Conley contract's kind of hamstringing him. I think he's got 2 years left on his deal. So 1 year, so this year and next year left on his deal, and they're paying him $34 million next year before he becomes another unrestricted free agent. It's, oh man, I don't know, dude.
I was coming into this pod high hopes, and really looking forward to watching the Jazz this year. And yeah, we're going to get to 55 wins. But they're one injury away from just nowhere. You know what I mean? Like they're a Donovan Mitchell, a Joe Ingles, a Mike Conley away from just how do we put a team together? Maybe they come late to the game and pick up a really savvy vet, maybe a JR, maybe a Jamal Crawford. That would be a good addition to the roster because I think their vet minutes fall outside cap space as well.
But they kind of need forwards though, They don't need more shooting. They kind of need more forwards, really, or a center even.
Yeah, there's not really that too many old centers kind of, maybe Amir Johnson.
Greg
trying to play Greg Runmo. No, he's playing. I think he's Greg Monroe.
Runmo.
I think he's playing.
Was that legit? Did you drop a Runmo legit then, or were you just?
No, I was taking a piss.
Sure,
he was kind of, he showed brilliance. Like, you need that veteran center. You need that guy that can come and take, 15, 20 minutes out of a game, potentially when it's a bad matchup. And I just don't think they have that. Maybe they've got something that we don't see in these young guys, but I think that it's a very minutes heavy starting five and not a very deep Jazz.
So if I'm looking at Hoops Hype, the unrestricted centers, free agent centers, 21st of June. So how long ago was that? That's a few months ago, probably before last season, before the draft rather. Joakim Noah, maybe Amir Johnson, Marcin Gortat, Kevin Seraphin. Holy shit, Andrew Nicholson. That's bare, man. The cupboard's bare if they're going to pick up some sort of like veteran center on the free agency mark. I don't even know if those guys are attached now because that's pretty old. Information. Free agent tracker coming up to 2020. Andre Drummond, maybe.
No, Andre Drummond's
No, but 2020. Yeah, so at the end of this season, basically.
Oh, who knows? No, no. I think Detroit are looking to re-sign him. He's going to be a Detroit. I don't know. He's getting paid too much as it is. Yeah, oof is the right word. Look, I think Royce O'Neal's probably their good. I mean, we might see more of Georges Niang. It's just they need that third center. I think they rely too much on Rudy Gobert and what he can do. They need that backup, deep kind of veteran center. Greg Monroe, Amir Johnson, they're not bad. They're serviceable. Amir Johnson's been playing finals basketball up until this year, so at least serviceable. Whereas you really got to be able to take this roster deep because you went all in on Mike Conley. Donovan Mitchell's going to get paid sooner or later, and you've really only got 2 years of jingling and to get the most out of this team. And we thought that they would go for a deep run last year, and it kind of didn't get pulled off. What is your win prediction for with this roster this year?
Did I write it down here? Just let me check here. I did not write it down. No, I did. 54. I went over. Why did I go over? That's crazy. Seems crazy now that I've actually looked at their roster and their lack of depth. I suppose they're going to play Ed Davis at center, I guess, if they have to. I'm not 100% convinced on that either. I'm going to change it to 52 and under.
I'm going to have to say 49. 49 wins. What did they get last year? 48?
50 on the button.
50 on the button. Yeah, they went on that big run last year. Look, I just think that they're one injury away from a whole bad, world of pain. And that's not unthinkable.
They went through a pretty big world of pain at the start of last season.
They did.
If you look at, I've got their thing here. They were essentially, I think, at one point in November, I think they were below 500 team, and then they went on some couple of crazy runs where they won 7 in a row, and then sort of towards the end of the season, I think they were about 13-3 basically to end the season. They always come good at the end of the season, and then hit the playoffs, and it's like, you guys are gas. Like what? How does this work? Like you play hard for 12 games and then in the finals, it's like, oh, well, they just ran out of puff. Like, well, how does this make sense?
Yeah, because they also lost Cephalosha last year. They lost.
And Exum as well. Like, I mean, we want to see him have a good season this season, but to be honest, losing him was a little bit of a blow last season for them because defensively he does a lot of ticks a lot of boxes when he's fit. On that roster last year, you ticked a lot of boxes in terms of kind of keeping Ricky Rubio away from being exploited on the defensive end. And then like Raul Neto last year, Kyle Korver pretty much useless on the defensive end. And then, this season, I'm not, having really looked into it, they're going to have to just kind of rely on Joe Ingles and Bogdanovic to just shoot lights out. Mike Conley's going to come and hopefully run some conventional point that'll actually use shooting. And Quinn Snyder, obviously, he runs some pretty complex offense, so maybe he's going to get some use out of staggering Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley.
Yeah.
Because we thought last year, he had the perfect combinations to just run that vortex pick and roll that he does on both sides of the court, basically, with shooters like Grayson Allen, guys like that, where he could but he kind of never went to Grayson Allen at all. They had Rodney Hood for a little bit last season as well. That's 17, 18, 19. They had
Ekpe
Burks for a little bit. Royce O'Neal is always good for some hustle minutes.
Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder's a big loss, I think, as well. Good power forward, can shoot the three ball.
Where did he end up going?
I think he's at the Nets, isn't he?
Jay Crowder is Grizzlies.
Is it the Grizzlies? Oh, he's part of that trade. He was part of the Conley trade.
Ah, yeah, he was too. Yep. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. Don't know about that trade.
Yeah, that trade doesn't seem that, decent, I think. Losing Crowder, Grayson Allen, two young guys for a max kind of stranglehold cap. Maybe they should sign Carmelo. Why not? Sign Cam.
I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
I'd do it. Come on. Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
So what was your pick? Ended up being 49 on the season. Yeah, I'm going under as well on that.
Where do they finish? Do they finish inside the top four? Do they kind of deep into the pack, the mid pack?
This season, you think? This season?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what this West's going to be, man. Like, I sneaky have this kind of weird feeling that teams are just going to be bad because they can be bad. Like, you look at the Clippers and the Lakers, and you're like, they're going to be the two best teams easily. Like, the Lakers have genuinely looked pretty scary anytime I've watched them this season against the Warriors and stuff like that. They've got crazy vertical spacing. And then with LeBron, basically, 6'11" guy who can basically just put his chest into anybody on the court and send them flying and just lay the ball in with the spacing that he has now. They look scary, but it's the Lakers, and they could just Laker again this season, and it could not work. You just never know. Like, they played there was a lot of Warriors games where, the Warriors don't have centers, so they can feast on them, and then it makes you just go, oh man, they're super scary. They've got super verticality, but then you kind of also go, the Warriors have got basically Marquise Chris, who's like a bum, and they're going like, they waived Alfonso McKinney to sign Marquise Chris, which sort of tells you like, holy shit, they're I don't know if they're going to be any good this season. You know what I mean? Like, you're looking at that.
When's Willie Cauley-Stein back from his injury?
I think they said a month, and I remember telling you about it a couple of weeks ago. So I'm pretty sure he's going to be back a few games in. But even then, when he comes in, like, it's like, Willie Cauley-Stein.
Yeah, I still think Kevon Looney's an underrated center. I think
But he's got to stay fit as well, because he's had a few little
injuries.
Little injuries here and there.
At the 5 spot, they're not too bad. I think that you've got the Lakers team, which can be a really massive team and good, but probably a little bit down to the older end of things.
And
I don't know.
The Clippers, where everything points to, Kawhi's just going to make them basically Toronto 2.0 this season.
Yeah,
and
but even then,
drag them to the finals. Sweet.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you look at the Raptors, and the Raptors still had Siakam, Ibaka, Valanciunas, who's decent center.
Paul George. I mean, the Clippers were pretty good last season. Like, admittedly, they were good all the way through to kind of the playoffs, where they basically played the Warriors in the first round and just went crazy on the goon. And I felt like it was like a misrepresentation of how good they really were. Like, they were just able to kind of goon a lot in that game, and it made it look like they were a really, really good team. So, add Kawhi to that team, you're just like, man, if they're able to get away with being the goon team again, then pencil them in to make the finals, because in the West, there's not really a physical team really anymore. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a team here in this West. Like, the Rockets, not really that physical, can get a little bit diva-ish if things aren't going their way. The Jazz might be a tough team to play. The Nuggets, I'm not looking at the Nuggets going, oh man, tough as nails, the Nuggets.
Yeah, they're kind of that weird team that you're like, ooh.
And then the Blazers. And the Blazers could be, look, the back end of last season, the back end of the season before last season, after they just got trounced by the Pelicans, that could have gone any way. That could have just gone, oh my God, the Trailblazers missed out on the finals the next season. But instead they won 55 games, was it? 53 games, and finished pretty high up, made the conference finals, got just roasted by the Warriors. But this season, I'm not sure, man. Like, this West could be like really, really, really good, or it could just be like, people just losing games left, right, and center, and they come back to the pack a little bit and just win barely over 50 games again. So I'm not sure, man. What do you think about the Rockets anyway? Just to take this detour really, really far down a rabbit hole, man. Some of that, like Russell Westbrook, James Harden, where it's just like Westbrook's got the ball, Harden's got the ball, Westbrook. I'm like, this is actually a little bit more interesting than last season, where it's just like Harden's got the ball, Harden's got the ball,
Yeah,
Harden's got the ball,
it's
Harden's got the ball over here, Harden's got the ball there, Harden stops with the ball, Harden goes with the ball. It's just like, ugh. But adding Westbrook into that, I'm like, man, this is like Westbrook now has the ball and just fucking lasers to the hoop, like whenever he feels like it. It's like, this is interesting.
it could be interesting. It could be that it will fall apart if Westbrook's ego gets in the way. I think that's what it is. If he doesn't stat pad, if he just plays Mike D'Antoni's style of game,
yeah.
then it'll take them to, I think, to the conference final. I think if they play a Lakers in form or a Clippers in form, they're probably not going to get there.
That's kind of like
who knows?
A double up of the like third round, second round and out type. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's kind of like, who knows when Clay gets back, if he hits any kind of form, and then you've got Curry, D'Angelo Russell, and Clay 1, 2, and 3. That team could put up 150 very quickly. Like, it's ridiculous amount of shooting.
Quietly, I think they're going to be bad, Like, I feel like halfway through the season, it's going to be going badly, and they're all just going to be like, whatever, we're all getting paid, who cares? Like, we went on that mad run, who cares? Like, I love Curry and Draymond, and then Clay being out is the ultimate, just like, it just sucks the air out of that whole team, because he was the underrated guy that it didn't matter what was happening. He'd just be like, I'll just shoot, man. Like, I love that story where when he's in his rookie year, takes a shot to win the game right at the end of a game, and they're like, fucking, you were supposed to give the ball up and go, it's all right, I'll make the shot next time. And they're like, no, you got to give the ball. And he's, no, I'll just make the shot next time. It's all good. And I'm like, that's this fucking mentality. Like, sums Clay up in a nutshell. And they're going to miss that, man. That's their best perimeter. Perimeter defense is going to fucking be terrible next year.
Yeah, it will be. But you don't know. If they make the finals, they could go pretty deep with those at 3, Draymond at the 4, and Willie Cauley at the 5 is not terrible. But who knows? I think the Jazz really, for my mind, would finish between 6 and 8. I think with this roster, and that's if all goes well. I think it's just it's a packed West again. They've really only got 2 or 3 third teams in there.
I wonder, like, how many of those, how many of the lower teams are going to push this season? Because we saw, like, last year, New Orleans didn't really, like, everyone was like, oh, but Anthony Davis, man, he's worth, wins. They're going to be locked in the playoffs. And you're just like, no. Like, he just was out halfway through the year, and they basically finished outside the playoffs. The Kings looked like, for a while, it was like Dave Yeager. Dave Yeager's got this team playing super quick. They don't make the playoffs, and they just fire Dave Yeager and bring in Luke Walton. I don't know how Luke Walton's going to go this season. It could just
terribly. This team, firing Dave Yeager was their worst decision of their. That was such an exciting style of basketball to watch and look at. Fastest team for pace, and then just we'll get Luke Walton, who's been raping people and trash at the Lakers for 3 years.
Hey, easy. I think was the case dropped?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
for money.
Yeah. Just oof. I hate thinking about that, man. Just tarnishes the beautiful game of basketball.
It does indeed.
So quickly, we'll just talk about Joe Ingles' World Cup stint.
Yeah, man. He played very well. Playing every 2 days on a 32-year-old unathletic body, it takes your toll. But facilitating, he was phenomenal. He played really well. Had some man of the match performances, and it just shows you that he's still NBA worthy. I think he's going to do a lot more facilitation this year, and let Conley and Mitchell do the scoring. I think he's going to play that weird. I can see Bojan Bogdanovic getting moved to the bench very quickly, even though Joe Ingles is starting a 6-man. I can just see that he doesn't. Yeah, I don't see Bojan fitting this team, because Bojan's like a 3-point shooter and he's not really a ball handler. So and he doesn't really facilitate. So you kind of need that glue guy that's going to really run the offense, which Ingles does no end to. I can see him averaging 8 to 10 assists a night quite easily in this new setup without Rubio being there. Um, we averaged 5.7 last season. That was, not being a point guard. So I can see definitely 8 to 10 assists a night and just really running the offense of this team and still shooting lights out as well, just as a lower volume.
So it's weird because Joe Ingles is kind of is good enough to run with the ball in his hand. He's good enough to shoot, and he's kind of a glue guy at the same. Like he's all three roles rolled into one. But this team isn't set up to just be like he doesn't, like we saw it in the World Cup. So where I'm coming from is at the World Cup you saw everything come out because it was obvious that team, that Aussie team, was basically like everyone is a leader on this team. So we're all like following everyone. Like, but there's hierarchy in that Jazz team. Like there's Donovan Mitchell, there's Rudy Gobert. You got to fit in. Then Bogdanovic, you got to kind of squeeze into this offense. Like, I don't think there's room now for Joe Ingles to just be like, you know what, I'm just going to run point to get us out of trouble all the time. You know what I mean? Like he's going to have to hang back and make shots and get the ball in broken plays. Like that's when he's going to have to go back to being a creator, where it's just like, oh, everything broke down, or we ran a play and basically I came off the curl and now I can play make in open court. And I don't know, like last year I liked his all-roundness, but this year I don't think there's room for that this season in this team.
You might have to go back. Yeah, I see probably Conley's lack of facilitation, Donovan Mitchell being primarily a scoring option. Is they're going to need that facilitator? So I see his role going to more that point forward where he can sneak out to the corner for a three, but is really just running a conventional pick and roll with Rudy Gobert. Facilitating Conley, facilitating Mitchell on the slash, because really they just if out on the floor they just have no facilitation. It's just ISO all the way, and so I could see him being that kind of glue in the middle that he doesn't. He's Ricky Rubio without the shot production, and he doesn't need to take 15 shots a game. He can just take 3 or 4 and hit 50%, but yet still be extremely productive on this team. Let Conley and let Mitchell and let Bojan hit the shots. That's where I see it this year, is this kind of that point forward kind of role.
The biggest thing is that he kind of has not had the proper off season. Do you feel like with this World Cup stint? But I guess
he's probably had an off season that's meant that he is fit, like game fit, game ready. He doesn't come back and jack up every year. He just kind of does his thing now. You know what I mean? He's a veteran of the league. It's not how good is he going to get in the off season. It's just like he's reached. We know what he can do. He's reached his level of performance. Now it's just about keeping the body fit and keeping the mind healthy.
He plays so controlled as well. That's a big thing about his game. He's under control most of the time. Like he doesn't need to be explosive. He picks his moments.
Exactly right.
I think we can leave it there after we went on a little bit of a detour back to the wider West, and now we're back to the Jazz. But again, we'll touch quickly on Dante Exum. 60 games. I just want to see 60 games. I don't care how good or bad it is.
When's he slated for return?
I think he was supposed to be back at the end of last season. Then did he get a foot injury as well? Somewhere in there?
I think he got a foot injury at the end of last season.
It, yeah. For Exum, first of all, getting healthy. Oh, it's his knee, torn patella. That's right. I remember that now.
Yeah.
He had a bit of an ankle injury, then he tore that knee when he'd just come back. He's running.
Yeah.
So maybe, if he comes back halfway through the season or quarter of the way through the season, I just want to see him get a really good just stint of games this season.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. That's all of our previews done for the season.
It is. Remember, like, share, and subscribe. Like us on Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe to our channel. You can find us on any podcasting platform. We are going to start our regular season coverage this Sunday, so be sure to tune in to our twice weekly podcast. We'll be bringing you all the stats, all the games, all the highlights, all the information on the Aussies in the NBA. So stay tuned.
Sunday evening. All right, I'll see you then. Take it easy, everyone.
Peace.
Peace.